Hi everyone, and welcome to Beyond Drag and Drop, Coding 101 with Webydo. I'm your host Yann, and today we will understand the code that is generated behind Webydo. Every time that we publish a site, how it works, how to manipulate it, how to understand it, and exactly what you can do with it. First of all, I wanted to wish all of you Happy New Year. Hope you had a wonderful year, and hopefully this year will be filled with a lot of websites. um, all right, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to understand how the code in Webydo works. Once we understand how the code in Webydo works, we'll be able to manipulate it to basically do whatever we want with it. Okay, to animate it, to change its functionalities, to do basically whatever we want. We'll mainly concentrate on a coding language called CSS and HTML, and let's start. So first of all, it's important for you guys to be very, very attentive to what I'm about to say right now. On this whole webinar, because once you understand how it works, you're good to go. Okay, so I'm gonna separate this webinar into 3 parts. Okay, today I'm gonna leave questions. I'm gonna wait 5 minutes for you guys to ask questions. You can ask questions in the meantime during my explanation of how the Webydo code works, and when we get to the part where I answer questions, I'll answer all of your questions. All right, so first of all, understanding the code in Webydo. Okay, so right now you're building a site. Everything is good. Okay, you're ready to publish your site. Okay, once you hit publish, these elements. Okay, so we have a text element, we have buttons element. So all the design view that you see here, once you hit publish, the system inside Webydo generates for every element a chunk of code, and it publishes it under one page. Well, basically all the pages that you have created, but the one that you see here right now is under this one page. So this text will have a bunch of, the freelancer will have a chunk of code, the button will have a chunk of code, etc., etc. Okay, so understanding the code. So this is exactly what we want to know. What happens when we hit publish? It generates the code. Okay, now how do we see the code? All right, so this is a freaky part. Don't be freaked out. Let's do it. Number one, we want to publish. And once it's published, I'm going to show you how to see the code inside Webydo. So I'm using Chrome. Okay, a lot of people are using Firefox. My personal suggestion, always use Chrome. Okay, I love Chrome. Chrome would be the best platform, best browser there. All right, so what we want to do, we want to know what is this chunk of code that is under the freelancer. So what I'm going to do on my mouse, I'm going to put my mouse on top of this text, and I'm going to right click on it. When I right click on it, I'm going to have a point where it says inspect. So you're inspecting the element. So click on it. Give it a moment. It opened on another screen. Sorry. There you go. Let me redo it. Inspect. And generally something like this opens up. Okay. So we want to understand how do I get to the code? So you basically select wherever you want, you right click and inspect. Okay. So let's have a look. Step 1, publish the site first. Right click on any element and then select inspect. Okay. So when you inspect an element, a window with 2 columns appears in your browser. The left column is the HTML, and in the right column, it's the CSS. These are 2 different coding languages. I'm not going to get too deep into it. You have HTML, CSS. Both of them work together. Okay, we're mainly going to use HTML to analyze and CSS to play around with. Okay, so now, how do I analyze an element? How do I know which element is selected? Okay, so if I do, for example, on this button here, I go and I do inspect, you're going to see that automatically in the HTML section, okay, it's going to select. It's going to select the element. Now, since we're looking at a lot of code, let me just zoom in. There you go. it automatically highlights the code, which highlights the element. Okay. Now the thing is, we want to concentrate on one thing inside the HTML section. We want to concentrate on a div ID. Okay, the ID of the element. It could like my ID 233, an ID of something. Okay, we want to concentrate on that. Whatever's inside, we do not care. We just want the ID of the element. Okay, so you're going to see that on your whole code, okay, you have IDs. Okay, div ID here. This is div class. We don't care. We just want div ID. Div ID, div ID, div ID, div ID. Now, if I right click on start, it might show me the div ID inside. Okay, so it showed me the text that is inside, get started, but we want the div ID. Div ID, inner magic widget 43, magic 43. This is what we want to get. Every time that you want to analyze an element that you dragged and dropped into the Webydo platform and you published it, you want to know which element is it, you're always looking at the div ID. If you double click, this is the div ID, exactly like that. Okay. So let me show you here. Whoops. This is exactly what we're looking for. Div ID, inner text 42, 42. Okay, this is for text, for any element. Okay. This is my first note. My second note is that every time that you roll, when you hover over a chunk of code, it selects the element itself. Okay. So for example, if I don't need to be here, but if I'm putting my mouse here, you see that automatically on my design, on my website itself, that my button is highlighted. That way I know what I'm selecting. Okay. So this is my second note. Okay, know that every time that you roll over on a div, inside the source code, it automatically highlights in blue the designed element. Okay, so this is as an example. So here I selected it. This is highlighted in blue, and the freelancer element is highlighted in blue. Now, my third note is that if you pay attention every time that you inspect an element whatsoever, as long as it's the div ID, okay, you're gonna see that it's extremely identical to the layers panel inside the studio. Okay, so let's have a look here. Note 3. Also know that the element that you inspected is also almost as identical as the studio's layer in the layers panel. So right now, what am I looking for? I am looking for inner text 42. Let's do the button here, for example. What is it? Inner magic widget 43. Let's go on my studio. Let's click on this button here, and on the top right, I'm gonna have my layers panel. Okay, and you're gonna see here ghost button 43. So it has the same ID. This is how I know that I'm selecting the right element. Okay, I also added an example here. Okay, the one that I'm selecting, the freelancer text 42, and inside the code inner text 42. So now that we have a clear view on how the code works, the HTML code, let's understand how the code takes effect once we start using it. In doing so, we need to first know how to call it back, how to summon it. Okay, so we'll go and inspect element. We know that we have the div ID. Once we inspect element on the right side, this is where we're going to use CSS, the different language, coding language. Okay, and what we're going to do, we're going to select the plus sign on the top right hand side of the CSS section, right here where you see my red square. Okay, so here I have selected on my right side. Do you see the square here? It's called new style rule. This means that I'm adding a style to that element. Okay, if I click here, okay, something that also helps a lot, the div ID of the widget is created. Okay, so this is the ID of the widget. So it creates the style. Okay, to create the style, it needs, this is how you call it. Oh, all right, so I called it. Now I can mess around with it. Now I can add something to it on the code. Okay, and later on, I'm also going to give you an example on what types of things you can do with code. All right, so as you can see here, I have selected the freelancer. Let me just do it here so that we're all synced. There you go. Inner text 42, div ID inner text 42. Press on the new style rule, exactly like that. All right. So, whoops. Once you click on the plus sign, a new style appears, and this is where you use the code. I also want to point out something that I didn't include on the slide. You're going to see intertext 42, a dot intertext 42, and a div ID. Okay, what's the difference, for example? So the div ID is more the element itself. Now in Webydo, on generally in coding, every element you can assign multiple elements into a class. Okay, a class. Let's call it a group. So in Webydo, every element has its own class. So that's why I told you don't pay attention into details of the code. Just you have a div ID, and that's it. If you can add the effect, you can add the effect either in the class or in the div ID. It's going to do exactly the same thing. So no need to worry about that. What we're going to review before we start animating something is where do we put the code? So all you need to do is put the code you desire into Webydo. In this example, I will teach you how to put elements on the side of every screen. But first, I want to show you where do you put the code. Okay, so you go to Pages, you select the code icon, and you insert the CSS code at the bottom where it says obviously CSS. Okay, so here, Pages, you select the page that you want. These are links. You cannot put code in links. You can only put code in Pages. You're going to see the code icon. Click on it, and at the bottom, you're going to see CSS, or the head, or the top of the body, bottom of the body, CSS. Now I just want to point out, you don't need to add the code all the time. You can also add, if it's something that is repeated on all pages, you can add code to all pages on the second tab. Here it says add code to all pages, okay? So this is where you add code. What we're going to do right now is we want to put, as an example, this is the example that I'm going to do today with you. I might give you other examples that I did previously. Pushing an element completely to the left of any screen whatsoever, or to the right, wherever you want. Let's pin it completely to the left, okay? And I'm going to tell you what notes I have, how easy it is, if you guys can follow me, and we'll do some tests. Okay, so first of all, a few notes, my notes. I always test my code live on the published version. And second of all, to assign elements on the complete left or right, you need to make sure that the element is outside the structured site. Okay, let me explain what the structured site means. Everything that you put in is static. Okay, if you assign certain animated things or a certain property or function into an element, you're taking it outside the structured site, which makes it which makes it more important than the other elements. Why? Because it has a function. You're adding a function to it. Okay. So in other words, defining outside structured site, this means that the element is outside the structured code. It's part of the website, but has a bigger importance than the other elements. There are two ways to set an element outside the structured site. One, you either pin it or you add a parallax effect. Okay. Now the parallax animation effect, you don't need to set it up. You can just add it like this. Let's put it on the button. Okay. Right click, add parallax animation, put it here. Okay, the black line here and the motion here, and don't do anything. I mean, you're not putting any parallax. Okay. Simple as that. What you just did is that by putting the function, it's a parallax animation, you're putting it outside the code, meaning more important than the rest of the elements that we have here. Okay. So let me remove that. Oh, no, let me keep doing that. Okay, let's leave it. All right, so now I put a parallax animation, okay, or I can pin it, whatever I want, okay. But what I want to do, I'm going to do two examples. I'm going to start with that button here, and then I'm going to do the logo, which is also a text element, okay. So number one, what I'm going to do, I'm going to publish the site. Okay, so you can see I have a parallax animation, but it doesn't take any effect whatsoever. Okay, I'm going to right click and inspect it. There you go. What we want to do, we want to go and see what is the div ID. So you can see that there's a parallax animation because the chunk of code is so much different than the one that we saw here. Where's the button here? Inspect, div ID. See, there's a difference in code. We added a transform into the code that doesn't transform, an animation that doesn't animate. So we just said that it's more important, in other words. Okay. And what we want to do, on my right side, I'm going to click New Style Rule. And let's say, I'm just clicking here, and let's say I just want it to be completely to the left. So simple as it can be, you just say left. You want to say right, you say right. You want to put it at the top, you say top. You want to put it at the bottom, you say bottom. Simple as that. Okay, so left, 0. You can put 0 pixels, 0%, 0 whatsoever. But since it's a 0, then you don't need to put anything. So 0. And now you want to make it extremely important, meaning that it's more important than the rest of the code, so it has to take effect even before the website loads. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put an exclamation mark and just say that it's important. It's important for me that it's on the left. That's it. I can zoom out as much as I want. Whoops, sorry. Click here and zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. And you can see that my button stays and will always stay to the left. If I want to move it somewhere else, well, I would say just using the Webydo Studio. But if you want to completely pin it and push it completely to the left, regardless of anything, then just say that it's left is 0, okay? Because it starts from 0 to 100%, and just say that it's important. To say that it's important, you say exclamation mark, important, and remember to finish with a semicolon. Now that you're done with that, all you need to do is copy this small chunk of code. Copy. Let's go to our studio, go to pages, home. Well, I have code here, but let me put it here. Paste. Save, always save. And then republish. And then what's going to happen is that my button is completely to the left, as you can see. Okay. Now, another way to do it. So I've seen a lot of clients that they do. Let me just zoom in here so everybody can properly see. I've seen a lot of clients asking me how to put my logo completely to the left or to the right, or just have the menu centered and let's say this element completely to the right and the logo completely to the left. All right, so let's do it. Inspect. We said we want div ID, right? So div ID. There you go. And I know that it's a pinned element. Remember, this and this is a pinned element. Okay. Now, not only that, it's also repeated on all pages. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I am going to div ID main text, new style rule, left. I can do 5% and just say it's important. Because if I say 0, it's going to be completely pinned to the left. Oh, import. And by the way, Chrome also auto-completes you, so it's even easier. So you see, it's completely to the left, but I want it to be, I'm not going to go in pixels. Let's say it's 5%. Oh, okay, I'm happy with that. Okay, so I copy this. Let's go to pages, home. I'll just take that off because nobody wants a button completely to the left. I'm just going to paste it here. Okay. Always save. It's important to save because sometimes if you do that a lot and you don't save it and you skip it, then it's not saved. Then you have to redo again, something that I hate doing. And let's say this, we want it to the right. Okay, so there is kind of a trick for that. Okay, to the left, it's super easy, but to the right, you need to say its left position is automatic. Okay, I have no control over it, but I have control over the right. Okay, so let me show you what to do if, let's say, you want to push it to the right. Okay, so number one, it's a menu, data type menu. This is div class, but I want the div ID. No, well, nav. Give me a minute, guys. Okay. So div in your menu. So left. Again, remember here we see div class. Do not pay attention to class. Class and ID are exactly the same. There are no multiple IDs to one class. It doesn't exist. I don't even want you to concentrate on that. Okay. So left is automatic. And of course, we want everything to be important. Important. Okay. Now you see that if it's automatically important, it's going to go to the left. Don't worry about that. Okay. Just put another one and say, no. I don't want left. I want right. Right is going to be 5%, and you see that it's already right, and you mark it as important. I always mark things important so that I know if sometimes something is not important, it's not going to work. So that's why I always put that it's important. So I'm just going to copy this whole chunk of code, and I'm just going to paste it again. Save it, publish it. Now I did put 5% because I just want everything to be the same position. There you go. So you see, this is how you work. All right, so let me just review very quickly. So we publish the site, we inspect the chosen element, okay? We select the plus sign to add new CSS style, okay? If it's left, we just click on the plus sign, enter something, whatever. It opens the brackets. Remember that brackets need, whatever open brackets you see needs to be closed. If it's not closed, the effect or the code will not work. So left 0 because it's complete to the 0 of left, and you mark it as important because it's important. If let's say you want to push it to the right, you need to say the left position is automatic. I have no control over it, but what I want it to do, since it's automatic, I want it to be right. So right 0. Okay. This is basically it. Questions? Okay, before I show you what you can actually do with animations, as long as you know a bit of, as long as you're a bit code savvy, you can basically do, honestly, I would tell you whatever you want. I have done so many things with Webydo. It has opened so many doors into making so many beautiful websites. I mean, right now I'm working on a website that I'm going to show you guys later on how to really build a business and make a business out of Webydo and its templates. Yeah, there you go. So you see, it's kind of a sort of animated. Okay, if you have a look, or you have my own website. So you can really animate any website. Okay. Okay, let me go over questions. Okay, can we add a certain class to all the shapes? From Patrick, no, because every ID has its own class. If we had many shapes that had one class, then it would be possible. However, there is sort of a way, something that I also saw. Okay, and here you go. So let's say we're grouping two elements. Okay, let me just group two elements. Let me choose two elements first. Okay, this and that. Okay, these two text elements. Okay, so 1, 2, right click and group. Okay, now that I grouped it, and when I'm going to publish it, okay, so a note that is extremely important. When I publish it, I'm going to have a div ID and the class of that group. And inside that group, I'm going to have different divs with different classes. But these different divs and different classes will be under one class, which is the grouped element. Okay? So Just going to publish it, show it to you, and answer more questions. So in the meantime, we have another question from Graeme Baker. Does this work with things like hamburger on mobile screen sizes? Yes, it does. Try it out. It's awesome. Okay. Going back to Patrick. Here. Inspect. And you're going to see div inner group. Where is it? Where is it? If I click here, it's going to show it to me because it's, there you go, inner group. So the class is data type group inner group, but you see here that you have two div IDs inside a div ID, so inside the group, okay? So try it out, see if something works like that. I have absolutely no idea. I haven't tried it yet. I always go one by one. I mean, unless if it's really a pain. Try to talk to me. Let's see what we can do. What I normally do if I'm using a lot of code and a lot of animations, I save everything into a file and I just I don't know if all of you are code savvy, but I use keyframes. Keyframes is sort of functions that are, let's say, inside my pocket. If I need them, then I bring them up. So there's keyframe animations. I bring them up whenever I want. I save them into a file, and whenever I need them, I bring them in. So let's try and answer a question from Christian. If you want the left-right styles on an element is set to appear on all pages, do you paste the code in the page or on all pages? Great question, Christian. Something that I didn't do is that I should have put the code into the pages. Let me just take it, and it's div inner menu and inner text. Okay, so I'm gonna cut, save, add code to all pages. Okay, because paste. Sorry. Right now, if I go on services, if I go on contact, no. What page do I have? Oh, okay. If I go on French, on the French version, I'm going to see, hey, everything is back again. Okay. No, you put the code on all pages so that the code will take effect on all the pages. Okay, we have a question from Megan. For right placement, is the left auto import required anytime? Yes, because you need to, if you're defining right, you need to define left. Okay, it generally goes like that. Like I said, I normally save it, and if I want to call it, I call it. When would be okay? So we have a question from Stephanie. When would we make changes in the code instead of Webydo Studio, or is it just a working preference? It's a working preference. I mean, how I do it, I finish the site. I don't put not a single line of code, okay, and then I analyze. Okay, what do I want to animate? What do I want to change? Because sometimes I won't lie to you. Some elements you want to manipulate certain elements that you can't do on the properties or design panel of the Webydo Studio. So you need to add code. This is how it works. Okay. There are so many things that we all want to do that it's kind of pretty hard to follow up on all the animations, all the effects, all the functionalities of every element. Okay. For example, we have an image. An image. Let's say an image, okay? And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put a text caption in it. But the thing is, a text caption is that when no animation, fade in, doesn't matter. I'm just gonna go on preview. I'm gonna show you what a text caption is. Is that when I hover over the image, there's a text caption with a background here, right? But the thing is, what I want to have is a button. And when I click on it, it opens up something, but I can't because it's not part of the design of Webydo. But you can do it with code. You can do it with code. There are so many things that we want to do that sometimes we can't. Okay, sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. But I mean, Putting code into the Webydo Studio fixes so many specifics that us designers want to do on the studio on our website. Okay, we have another question from Graeme Baker. Can we add HTML CSS responsive menu and using this technique? Yes. We have another question from Steven. When I use the hamburger menu, I can place the drop-down menu anywhere on the page. When I use the drop-down menu on horizontal menu, I cannot reposition the drop-down menu to the left or to the right. Is there a way to use CSS or HTML to reposition this drop-down menu? Let me understand. Okay, so you mean this is in a way a subpage. Okay, do you want to position them in a certain way? Okay, let's try it. So this want to inspect. This means that we're trying to change the submenu. Yep, there you go. Okay, another question from Shane. How to do anchor to? First of all, Stephen, I hope this is what you mean. So I rolled over language and the menu appeared on the left. I have no idea if it's what you wanted. So let me know. Okay, I'm just gonna answer a question from Shane Wong. How to do anchor to other pages? Right now we can do anchors only on the page. Amazing question, which is why I did a webinar specifically on that. If you want, I'll search it and send it to you. 1 second. I'm just going to send the link that Mr. Wong requested. This is putting an anchor link to a different page. Okay, it's a kind of an anchor link trick. Okay, so I'm just going to send it to all of you. There you go. Okay, you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel and you'll have everything inside. We have a question from Francois. Is there a basic CSS coding commands we should know? Not specifically. I mean, I decided to do this webinar because I wanted to show you what you can do beyond Webydo on how to understand code. I know that coding is kind of a freaky subject. I just wanted to show that you can do more than what you normally do on the studio. I mean, today, my challenge is to do certain things that have nothing to do with coding, and my last option is to code. Okay, I learned everything on the internet. That's kind of my last resort. Okay, but I did wanted to show you that building a website is pretty much possible in any way, in absolutely any way, and you have amazing account managers that are here to help you in any way possible. So use them. We have here a question from Thomas. Is there a source for CSS command to which with code it needs? Look, honestly, I did it. I learned how to do it. I'm sure you can Google it. CSS commands, CSS styles, CSS animations, and I'm sure you can. There are so many results. Especially coding languages are one of the most researched subjects on Google. You have so many. It's free to use. I mean, just Google it. I'm 100% sure you'll find it. I'm on a forum, okay, where I post comments, questions, try to do a few coding tricks, and I learn from it. Okay, I try it. Okay, the best suggestion I can give you guys is that review the webinar that I sent you. Maybe go to I have an idea. W3 School. I mean, if you guys are interested to learn coding, There you go. I'm pasting that in. Okay. Try to merge the link that I sent you, w3schools.com, and how the system in Webydo works, how the code in Webydo works, and I'm sure if you merge them together, you'll be able to do a lot of cool things. Oh, James sent me the same link. Thank you, James. Coming from Wim, I would be interested to see how you make animations without a parallax by using code. I hope that this is a future project that I'll be able to do. Okay, but if so, obviously you guys will be the first to know. Can we set fluid text boxes by changing the size to percentages? Not all of them. It depends how you make it. I usually I add code to the paragraph style, and I make a specific paragraph style. I'm like, okay, this paragraph style, I'm going to put a code into it. So every time there's a text that has this paragraph style, it'll know that I need to put code into it. So it's kind of putting a style to every text that is assigned to that paragraph style. So try it. Try it. I didn't do that yet. Okay, another question from Shane. How do I do pop-up for announcements with a closed cross sign? There aren't. There isn't like. I mean, you're getting into too deep inside the coding world of websites. I would suggest Mailchimp. I would also suggest we also have a plugin called. I'm going to tell you right now. Get Site Control. If you go on plugins, you're going to see Get Site Control. Okay, we have a knowledge base on how to do this, but basically, I'm just going to show you what it does. Get Site Control. Widgets. Let's say promo. Okay, and you can put it as a pop-up. There you go. Close it. Okay, so we have another amazing question, and I'll finish this webinar with that question from James. To put custom code in CSS, is there a percentage or a preference or advantage to use Parallax over Pin it? It's exactly the same. I personally prefer Parallax because if I pin it, it's gonna be pinned on the studio itself. I don't like that. I like to parallax. I like to put a parallax that means absolutely nothing to me instead of pinning it, because I mean, look, I can use it's the same thing. It's the same functionality. It works. But if I pin it, if I pin this and I'm adding if I pin this and I'm adding code to it, it follows me. I don't want that, and then it could mess up my website. I would prefer parallax animations. Okay, so guys, I hope you all enjoyed this webinar. Of course, if you have any questions, you have account managers, you have customer success managers, we're all here to help you guys. We're all here to grow all together. Thank you again for joining. It was amazing to have you guys, and tune up for the next webinar on how to set up your CMS user. So thank you very much, and have a great day and evening.